ba'd. We have started this Saturday's series every Saturday after Maghrib, bi'idhnillah azza wa jal. And we'll be covering 40 Nawawi Hadith. And we started the first session by talking about Imam Nawawi, who he is, where is he from, a bit of background of him. And we mentioned that the 40 Nawawi Hadith are considered the compilation of the major Hadith in Islam. So Imam Nawawi, what he did, he collected 42 Hadith of the Hadith that cover so many areas in Islam. And for that reason, this Hadith Nawawiyya, this book, is considered one of the important books for everyone to know about Islam and know about the major issues about Islam and so on. That's why you find Arba'in Nawawiyya everywhere, every masjid, every maktaba, people have it everywhere because the importance of this book. And we look into Hadith number 1, which was about niyyah, intention. We said Imam Nawawi intentionally he put this book at the beginning of his book, the Hadith of niyyah, intention. إنما الأعمال بالنيات. And it was an indication from Imam Nawawi that if you want to start anything, you have to start with the right niyyah. Anything that doesn't have the right niyyah is not going to help the person. So this is something for us to reflect on. And we covered that hadith. The second hadith, which we started last week, but we haven't finished, was the hadith that's known as Hadith Jibreel. Hadith Jibreel. And Hadith Jibreel is also narrated by Umar ibn al-Khattab. The first hadith, Hadith al-Niyyah, إنما الأعمال بالنيات, is narrated by Umar ibn al-Khattab. And the second hadith is also narrated by Umar ibn al-Khattab. And he, radiallahu anhu, said, بينما نحن جلوس عند رسول الله, while we were sitting with the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, إذ طلع علينا رجل شديد بياض الثياب شديد سواد الشعر. A man came, approached us, and he started to describe this man. So he said his clothing was extremely white, very white, and his hair was too dark, very dark. لا يرى عليه أثر السفر. It doesn't look like he's a traveler. From his appearance, he doesn't look like a traveler. ولا يعرفه منا أحد. But at the same time, none of us recognize him, which is a bit mysterious. Someone who's not a stranger, but he's also not, no one knows him. So it was kind of confusing description. حتى جلس إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, and he sat close to the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, as close as possible, where أسند ركبتيه إلى ركبتيه. So he came so close that he put his knees next to the knees of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, sitting next to him. And وضع كفيه على فخذيه, and he put his arms on the thighs of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. And this might have an indication of humility, to seek knowledge. I might have other indications, but that was the approach of this man. And then he said, Ya Muhammad, akhbirni an Islam. Oh Muhammad, tell me about Islam. This is a very general question. Tell me about Islam. So the Prophet ﷺ started by explaining to him the 5 pillars of Islam that we know today. He said, أن تشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمد رسول الله وتقيم الصلاة وتؤتي الزكاة وتصوم رمضان وتحج البيت إن استطعت إليه سبيلا. And the man responded by saying, Sadaq, you have said the truth. He said, فعجبنا منه. We were surprised. He's asking, but then he's confirming, he's saying, you said the truth. That's not how, when people ask questions, they don't confirm to the person that you just said the truth. But then he said, أخبرني عن الإيمان. Tell me about Iman. And the Prophet ﷺ started to tell him the 6 pillars of Iman that we know today. So he said, أن تؤمن بالله, to believe in Allah, وملائكته, his angels, وكتبه, the books that's been revealed, ورسله, the messengers and the prophets, واليوم الآخر, the last day, وأن تؤمن بالقدر, to believe in the destiny, the qadar, خيره وشره, both the khair and the shar. And he said, Sadaq, you have said the truth. And then he said, فأخبرني عن الإحسان. Tell me about ihsan. What is ihsan? The Prophet ﷺ said, أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه. Worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if you see Allah. Your level, your standard for worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is as you can see Allah in front of you. فإن لم تكن تراه فإنه يراك. You know that you cannot see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but you know that He can see you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can see you. And then he said, فأخبرني عن الساعة. Tell me about the hour, the last day, the day of judgment. The Prophet ﷺ said, ما المسؤول عنها بأعلم من السائل. The one who's being questioned or asked doesn't know more than the one who's asking. It's like he's saying, if you're asking about the time, I don't know. No one knows. No angel has clue about the day of judgment, when it's going to happen. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the knowledge of Yawm al-Qiyamah. So he said, فأخبرني عن أماراتها, as in tell me some of the signs about the last day. So he said, أن تلد الأمة ربتها, that the slave woman will give birth to her master. This is one of the signs. And then the second sign is أن ترى الحفاة العراة العالة رعاء الشاة يتطاولون في البنيان. You see the barefoot, the shepherds will be competing in tall buildings. SubhanAllah. The Prophet was talking to, at that time, it was desert. And for someone who is a shepherd, who is bare feet, to think that there will be time where we, as bare feet and shepherds, we're going to be competing in tall buildings. But that's what the Prophet ﷺ said. And then the man left. So the Prophet ﷺ waited for a while, and then he looked at Umar ibn Khattab and he said, do you know who's the person who asked all of these questions? This person. And he said, Allah wa Rasuluhu a'lam. I don't know. Allah and His Prophet knows best. He said, this is Jibreel. He came to teach you your religion, your deen. So it shows that this is one of the ways that Jibreel would come as a form of a man, speak to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Sahaba will see him. But they can't see him in his original form. They'll see him in the form of a man. This happens many times. Sometimes he will take the form of one of the Sahaba known as Duhayyat al-Kalbi. He was one of the most handsome of the Sahaba, and he will come and take his form. Other times, only 2 times the Prophet ﷺ was able to see Jibreel in his real form. One time in Mecca, and one time in Rihlat al-Isra wal-Mi'raj. And the way he described him is amazing. He said he was covering the whole horizon. His wings. The first time actually the Prophet ﷺ got so terrified, scared, that when he saw him, he raised his eyes and he saw him covering the horizon. The Prophet ﷺ fell down. And then he ran to his house. Something he never experienced, never able to see. So he saw him twice. But then other times he would probably see him as in a form of a person. Other times the revelation will come to him. He will go into a state where kind of he will lose his conscience, and he will only wake up with the Quran. So he will just go for a while, and then he will come back with the revelation being given to him, to his heart, right? And so on. So in this case, obviously, he came to teach the Sahaba their deen. So we spoke about Shahadatu la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammad Rasulullah. That's the first thing. That's the key to Islam, and that's which without all the other things will not benefit the person. If someone go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without believing, with having shirk, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not accept anything from him. وَلَقَدْ أُوحِيَ إِلَيْكَ وَإِلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ لَئِنْ أَشْرَكْتَ. It was revealed to you and to the prophets before you that if you commit, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the Prophet, if you commit shirk, لَا يَحْبَطَنَّ عَمَلُكَ. All your actions will gone in vain. They are not going to benefit you. So we know that Tawheed is the key. Without having Tawheed, and that's why we need to learn Tawheed. We need to understand what is Tawheed. Because sometimes someone might fall into level of shirk if he doesn't know what Tawheed is. And today, subhanAllah, places where there's a lot of ignorance, people do commit practice, they fall into practices, but they're not from Islam. So for example, calling other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, istighatha. Going to someone and saying, help me, give me, I'm desperate. If you do this to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's a form of shirk. And the mushrikeen in Mecca, the shirk was that they used to believe that there's a creator. They know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's a creator. وَلَئِنْ سَأَلْتَهُمْ مَنْ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ لَيَقُولُونَ اللَّهِ. If you ask them who created the heavens and earth, they say Allah. We know this. So what's the problem? They take intercept. They take those who are in between, to help them, to listen to them, to support them. And they do this tactically. They know what they're doing. So for example, if they're in the sea, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explained in Surah Al-Ankabut and so on, that when they're in the middle of the sea and the boat is really going into trouble, what do? When they دعوا الله مخلصين له الدين, they will forget all the other gods, all those in between. Only Allah, immediately. Tawheed to the best. طيب. فإذا نجاهم إلى البر إذا هم يشركون. And one of them said, actually, this is weird. Why is the God of the sea is not like the same God? And he started to ask these questions. He said, it doesn't make sense. It should be the same. We should be consistent. Like, why are we doing this? So Quraysh, they had this problem of shirk. It's not that they totally denying the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they had issues with these middle gods. But they also had another problem, that they don't believe in Yawm al-Qiyamah. They don't believe that there's the last day. Quraysh never believed that there is khalas. They would believe that if someone died, that's the end of it. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explained in the Quran. But the Prophet ﷺ here is mentioning that Tawheed is number one. Before Tawheed, you cannot talk about Salah, about Zakat, about anything else. And the second thing is Salah, immediately. So as Muslims, Salah should be number one in our life. And when we teach our children, we should be worried about Salah. If someone doesn't have a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doesn't pray, doesn't speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 5 times a day, doesn't put his forehead on the ground 5 times a day to Allah azza wa jal, then what kind of connection is there with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The scholars, they discuss someone who doesn't pray at all. Is he Muslim? It's a big, massive question mark. Yeah? At least they debate about someone who pray and stop praying. Someone who prays Fridays, Jum'ah, prays on the Eid, pray in Ramadan. They have a debate about him, whether he's Muslim or not. But someone who doesn't pray at all, then, because there are clear ahadith. This is not just the saying of the scholars, but there are clear ahadith. The Prophet ﷺ said, العهد الذي بيننا وبينهم الصلاة فمن تركها فقد كفر. He said, this is the line between us and them. And what would distinguish you from non-Muslim, for example, if you don't pray? So sometimes, subhanAllah, we have people around us in the communities and society, they see this like a sin. They don't pray at all, and they see this like a sin. Inshallah, Allah give me guidance, Allah yahdini. It's more than that. So we have to be careful, and we need to make people also aware in the best way, obviously. We don't need to go to someone and say, do you know that you are kafir? If you don't, there's no need for that. Just explain the severity of this problem and the importance of connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why should we have a connection with Allah azza wa jal? Help us and so on and so forth. And then the Prophet ﷺ spoke about zakah. طيب. And zakah is a pillar. Again, we have issues. Some people think zakah is just extra sadaqah. It is not. There is extra sadaqah that you can give, but zakah is a pillar. And if you remove a pillar, a whole house will be collapsing. So, and that's why after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, some of the tribes, they refused to give zakah. They said, we used to give it to Muhammad, but we're not going to give zakah anymore. Why would we give zakah? Khalas. Prophet ﷺ died. And Abu Bakr Siddiq said, no, it doesn't work like that. If you stop zakah, it means that you stop salah. It means that you stop siyam. It means there's no Islam. And he took it upon himself, and he convinced some of the Sahaba, and there was the war that took place after the death of the Prophet ﷺ. So zakah is a compulsory thing. We need to calculate it. It's a yearly money that have to be taken out of our saving. The saving is, there is a threshold, minimum. Yeah. Below that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't ask you to give zakah. But if you reach that threshold and above, then you must give zakah. You must give 2.5% of your money. Yeah. And that threshold is valued at around 85 gram of gold. So you need to check how much is that. It could be 300 pounds, 400 pounds. So if you have more than that saved and for a whole year or more, then you have to give zakah. You have to calculate 2.5% and give zakah. Right? Otherwise, you committed something serious, something big. So it's very important that. And best way to do this, sometimes people calculate it with Ramadan, for example. So every Ramadan, they will take the zakah. So every Ramadan, they will check how much they saved for a whole year, which is, if it's above that threshold, then 2.5% has to be taken and given. And zakah has to be given in certain for certain categories, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned them in Surah At-Tawbah. طيب. We cannot just give zakah for other than these categories. طيب. Some people ask, can I give zakah to my parents? That's not good. Parents cannot be given zakah. Parents should be taken care of. Should be looked after. You can't go to your parents and say, I'm giving you zakah. Zakah cannot be given to parents. Right? Even if they're poor, you look after them, you don't give them zakah. But it can be given to family members who are poor. And that level of poverty again is described in إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين. So faqir and miskin, they have categories. Yeah, those who don't have the food for today. Right? No, someone who is living comfortably, but he just, he wants to go for holiday, but he cannot afford to go to holiday, so you go and give him zakat. that would be mushkila. Right? No, it has to be given to people who are really on the basic level of needs. They cannot afford the basic needs, rent, food. They just can't pay for the basics. So you give it to them. الفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوب. العاملين عليها, those who collect the zakat, they can get share of it because they dedicate their time. So they volunteer from their time, they can be given. والمؤلفة قلوبهم, there's a category of people who we want them to accept Islam. We have hopes, inshallah. So we can be kind to them by maybe giving them some gifts, some sort of money and support and so on. And Umar ibn Khattab, actually, at a certain time, he said, I'm not going to give this because this only should be given to people who are in need, people who are, we have hopes that they become Muslims. So the Prophet ﷺ, for example, some chief of certain tribes, leaders of certain tribes, he will give them. Yeah? Because he have hopes that if this leader of a tribe accepts Islam, it will be easier for the followers. So there's some hopes that this person will be accepting Islam and so on. So part of the zakah could be given to this. وَالْعَامِلِينَ عَلَى الْمُؤَلَّفَةِ قُلُوبُهُم وَفِي الرِّقَابِ. وَفِي الرِّقَابِ are those prisoners, for example, because of debt or something. Some people are held in prison because they cannot pay. طيب. Or prisoners of war, that they have to be released through giving money. That can be coming from the zakat. وَالْغَارِمِينَ, those who have debt, big debt, and they're in real trouble, we can give them. وَفِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, and those who are in state of war and jihad and so on, that can also come from it. So these are masarif of zakah. Zakah can only be given in this. So sometimes people ask, can I give my zakah to the masjid, for example, to part of the donation? We say, generally speaking, no. Unless there's a specific fatwa and so on. But generally, these are the masarif of zakah. Cannot be just given for other than these categories, because they're mentioned in the Quran. That's zakah. Sawm, obviously, also one of the pillars of Islam, and we need to observe it and so on. Hajj, one of the things that a lot of us maybe not pay enough attention to. Some people, they take it too lightly when it comes to Hajj. And Umar ibn Khattab used to say, the one who does not perform Hajj and dies out of not concerned about Hajj, he just keep delaying it and so on. He said, let him die on the religion, any religion he wants, Christian or Jews. SubhanAllah, yeah, it's shocking. But again, they're called pillars for a reason. In a building, you usually have pillars. And tell any architect, any engineer, I want to knock down this pillar. They say, are you serious? This building will collapse. You can't. So, Hajj is a very, very important, it's a pillar. So it must be fulfilled, it must be done. And some people, they say, oh, it's expensive, oh, this and that. Okay, but at least work towards that. Don't just leave it. And some people, subhanAllah, they have big wish list, 10 countries that they want to visit in their life. Before I die, I must do skydiving, I must do, want to visit, this island, I want to do this and this. They have big wish, but what is Hajj? Hajj is number one, actually. So if someone is really spending, mashallah, his years and years and money, and has been doing so many things, and when it comes to Hajj, it's expensive. But that works, it doesn't work like that. So we have to put Hajj as a priority. Yes, it involves a lot of money, and maybe sometimes you cannot afford, but at least have some plans. at least have some saving, for example, for it. Yeah, at least put it in the list of the top of the priorities. Right? So, because you will be questioned if you could not do Hajj because of your just being too relaxed about it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold you responsible. So it's very important to look into it that way. So, and then the Prophet ﷺ asked, Jibreel asked about al-Iman, the pillars of Iman, the 6. To believe in Allah, again, always start from Tawheed. And His angels, we have to believe in all angels, the books, all the books that were revealed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all the prophets, those who we know, those who we don't know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, وَرُسُلًا لَمْ نَقْصُصْهُمْ عَلَيْكَ. There are prophets that we have not narrated, we have not mentioned in the Quran. We believe in all of them. And we believe in Al-Qadr. This is something that we have to talk about. Al-Qadr, as we said, to believe in Al-Qadr, we don't just believe in Al-Qadr in general, but also some details about Al-Qadr. So we believe in the ilm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of everything. Things that happen, things that will happen, things that did not happen. If they were to happen, how will they happen? SubhanAllah. The ilm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encompasses everything, covers everything. So the ilm of, there's nothing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't have a knowledge of in this universe. Everything Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows about. وَمَا تَسْقُطُ مِنْ وَرَقَةٍ إِلَّا يَعْلَمُهَا. Even a leaf that fall in the darkness, in the forest somewhere, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has knowledge of it. And it's been also recorded. Everything has been recorded. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He created the first, He created the pen, al-qalam. And He said, uktub. And al-qalam said, what do I write? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the qalam to write ma kana wa ma yakun. What happened and what will happen. Everything. So, and this is, when is this recorded? Before the creations of the heavens and the earth, 50,000 years. 50,000 سنة, before even the creation of the heavens and the earth. All of this is being recorded. So there is something called a lawh al-mahfuz, the preserved tablet, where everything is recorded. This is something that we have to believe in. The second belief, that we have to believe that al-qadr includes the mashi'ah. Allah has a will. Nothing will happen if Allah doesn't want it to happen. It doesn't happen without the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even those who don't want to believe in Allah azza wa jal. If Allah doesn't want to allow them for this to happen, that will not happen. Of course, there are two types of mashi'ah. There's the mashi'ah or shar'iyya. There are things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want us to do. In shara, Allah loves for us to do. And there is mashi'ah qadariyya. It's qadar. Even things that Allah doesn't want us to do. Right? So Allah wants everyone to become Muslim and believe in Him and Tawheed and so on. So this is the mashi'ah shar'iyya for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then there is mashi'ah qadariyya, that things that even Allah doesn't want to happen, still He will allow it to happen. Like He tells His ibad to believe, but if they don't, that falls under qadar of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still. So there's the ilm, we have the mashi'ah, and we have the qudra. Allah has the ability to change the qadr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sometimes change the qadr. Ad-du'a. When we make dua, the Prophet ﷺ said, ad-du'a wal qadr, they wrestle. Our dua with the qadr, they wrestle. And if our dua and our trust, our tawakkul Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is strong, maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will change the qadr for us. So the qudra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah can, anything Allah wants it to happen, it will happen. Allah doesn't want something not to happen, it will not happen. This is the qudra. And the fourth thing is the hikmah. Whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in qadr has hikmah, has purpose, has wisdom behind it. Doesn't happen random, doesn't happen for no purpose. Again, this is something that we have to believe as part of our belief in al-qadr. And believe in al-qadr give us a lot of comfort in our life and give us a lot of peace in our life. The next thing the Prophet ﷺ asked about al-ihsan. And al-ihsan is something that also maybe as Muslims we are not paying enough attention to, but something that we have to work on, which is raising the standard of our ibadah, raising the standard of whatever we do in our life to the highest level. So what is al-ihsan? أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه. So imagine you standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you feel like you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How is that level is going to look like? It's going to go up. Going to go to another level. Imagine when you deal with Muslims around you, when you do things, you're doing them as if you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in front of you. You will do it, you will do all of these things to the best, the highest level. But this is a concept that if we have in our mind that we worship in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're doing everything as if we can see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's right there. Then we're going to raise the standard. Al-ihsan. Right? So perfecting our ibadah, perfecting our akhlaq, perfecting our this. And that requires, my brothers and sisters, for us to have targets. You know, raise your standard, raise your target in akhlaq, in ibadah, in memorizing the Quran, in when you deal with people, deal with your parents. When you do all of these things, have higher standard and work hard towards that standard. Al-ihsan, and tuhsin for everything. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you the same. وَهَلْ جَزَاءُ الْإِحْسَانِ إِلَّا الْإِحْسَانِ. You worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if you see Him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you with ihsan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you even more, will look after you. Right? So al-ihsan is a very important concept that we as Muslims, we need to reach. And then he asked about as-sa'a, the hour. As we said, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the ilm as-sa'a. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ilm as-sa'a wa ilm al-ghayb, yunazzilu al-ghayth, the rain, طيب, ويعلم ما في الأرحام, He knows what's inside the womb. وما تسقط من ورقة إلا يعلمها. There's nothing that happens in this universe except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. So علم الساعة is with Allah Azza wa Jal. No one knows when is the sa'a. يسألونك عن الساعة أيان مرساها فيما أنت من ذكراها. Because they keep asking, they say, when is the hour? Okay, bring the hour now. They think it's something that the Prophet ﷺ can say, okay, I'll give it to you now. No. The Prophet ﷺ, he doesn't even have this. And this shows the, subhanallah, the limitation that even the Prophet as a Prophet has. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has things that does not reveal to everyone. No one will be able to share. So in terms of time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet ﷺ doesn't know. And no Prophet, no angels, no one knows. But he said, أخبرني عن أماراتها. Tell me something about the signs of these hours. Something general to know about the signs and the alamat al-sa'a is that things will be upside down. One of the things that will show that the day of judgment is coming close is that things will start to change. Things will be upside down. And from this is أن تلد الأمة ربتها, or the slave woman to give birth to her masters. And scholars, they said, yeah, literally, they have to take the hadith as there will be time where there will be a lot of slavery maybe back at that time, so on, and women will give birth, and then this person will be free, own the mother again in slavery, and there will be a lot of things like that, and that will be a sign that the day of judgment is coming close. Other scholars, they said it means that things will be upside down. Whatever people used to know, subhanAllah, it will change. We know that also from that, for example, people will not know Islam. Islam will disappear. And yeah, the Prophet ﷺ said there will be time where there will only be the old man and the old woman, and they will say, we remember our forefathers, they used to say this word, La ilaha illallah. Only thing left. And there will be, at that time, the Prophet ﷺ said people would not know what is Zakat, what is Salah, what is nothing. And all the generation will say, we used to remember. And this is something for us to be careful about, because usually things will happen gradually. And especially we live in the West, we need to take care of our children, families. We need to make sure that, these things does not happen to them. Because, I don't know, these things can even happen to, maybe not exactly in our generation, but part of it can affect us as a society, as a community. So we have to be very careful. So from these things, as we said, things will be upside down. Eventually, the day of judgment, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make the blow, khalas, for the day of judgment, the last people who will be alive are the worst of people. The Prophet ﷺ said, Luka' ibn Luka', meaning that the worst of people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take the soul of all the believers with the wind, those who are left at that time, and before the day of judgment, they will be only the worst of people. So it shows that things going down. They're not going to the best. لا يأتي على الناس زمان إلا والذي بعده شر منه. Prophet said there will be no time except the time after will be worse. And this is again something for us to pay attention to. He also said ترى الحفاة الرعاة العالة رعاء الشاة يتطاولون في البنيان. The barefoot, the shepherds, competing in tall buildings. Can we say this is happening in our time? Probably we can. No one ever thought that in the Arabian Peninsula, in the middle of that desert, there will be these tall buildings and we'll be competing on. No one ever. If you say this 100 years ago, people would think what are you talking about? But now we can see it. But the Prophet ﷺ spoke about this over 1400 years ago, where it was even more desert than 100 years ago. It was like there was nothing. Yet the Prophet ﷺ spoke about it. He said, these people, these barefoot, these Bedouins and so on, they will be competing in tall buildings. Something that we can see today. See? So again, it's a sign that things will be upside down. The shepherds, the barefoot are becoming the richest. They're having these tall buildings. Does that mean that they're bad people? No, not necessarily, but it's just a sign. It's a sign for us that we have to be careful and we have to be worried. So these are the signs that mentioned in this hadith. There are other signs that mentioned in other hadith, Ad-Dajjal, Khuruj Ad-Dabba, that animal, that beast that will come in and will be speaking to people. There will be fire, the Yemen, so on. So there are different signs that we mentioned in different hadith, but these are the main, the two signs that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in this hadith. But the lesson for all of us is that to understand that we don't have time. And the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, or I can't remember if it's hadith. No, I don't think it's athar. Some of the athar that man mata qamat qiyamatu. For us, when we die, our qiyamah is gone, is started. You don't need to witness all of this. The minute you die, khalas, your qiyamah is. You started your qiyamah. You put your foot in the first step of Yawm al-Qiyamah. You're not going to see everything, these signs. Because once you die, khalas, you're going to deal with the unseen, al-barzakh, in the grave, and you'll be seeing things from close to the day of judgment. So man mata qamat qiyamatu. The one who dies, his qiyamah started. So that also make us aware that we have to also think about our last day in this dunya. How will it look like? And by the way, we have maghsala, we have funeral service inshallah that will start very soon, and we opened door for those who want to volunteer and support inshallah ta'ala, and it's a reminder that this is something that's going to come, whether now or later, but it's happening, it's coming. No one will be escaping out of it. innaka mayyitun wa innahum mayyitun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the Prophet sallallahu, you will die and they will die. Kullu nafsin dha'iqatul maut. Every soul shall taste death. If we wonder what death look like, we'll taste it. And Amr ibn al-As used to say, if I find a man who's so smart, so eloquent at his time of death, and I ask him to describe what you're going through, he said, I would love to have this. Because you want to know what death look like. But not everyone will be able to describe for you what death look like. But regardless, we're all going to taste death. So that's something for us, a reminder in this hadith. So in general, this is some of the fawaid, some of the benefits that we can extract from this hadith. Next week we'll look into hadith number 3. Hadith number 3 and hadith number 2 are almost identical. It's part of hadith number 2. So we might jump into hadith number 3 inshallah ta'ala next Saturday. Barakallahu feekum. جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.